She wrecked 25 years in one night. I'm just returning the favor.
25 years of marriage, and my wife Sarah chose to celebrate by screwing her personal trainer in a roadside motel, while I sat at home with cold takeout and wilted flowers. The police call came at 11:47 p.m. on what should have been our silver anniversary. Mr. Thompson, this is Officer Martinez with the county sheriff. We need you to come to General Hospital. Your wife has been in an incident. I knew exactly what kind of incident. The kind that happens when you're 45, desperate to feel young again, and stupid enough to think a 28-year-old musclehead actually cares about more than your credit card limit. The drive to the hospital felt like swimming through molasses. Sarah had been working late more often lately, hitting the gym at odd hours, buying new lingerie that I never got to see. I'm not an idiot. I restore classic cars for a living, but that doesn't mean my brain's made of motor oil. I just chose to pretend I didn't see the signs because confronting them meant admitting our marriage was wreckage on the side of the road. County General's emergency room smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as I approached the reception desk. I'm here about Sarah Thompson, I told the tired-looking nurse. She glanced at her computer screen, and I caught the flicker of recognition in her eyes. The kind of look that said she'd seen this story before. Middle-aged woman, motel room, paramedics called by housekeeping. Room 314, she's stable, but... The nurse paused, choosing her words carefully. The police will want to speak with you. I found Sarah propped up in a hospital bed, looking like she'd been hit by a freight train carrying a load of regret. Her blonde hair was matted, her makeup smeared, and she was wearing a hospital gown that barely covered the evidence of her evening's activities. The smell of cheap cologne still clung to her skin. "David," she whispered when she saw me, her voice hoarse. "I can explain." "Can you?" I pulled up a chair, studying her face. "Because I'm really curious how you explain celebrating our anniversary by getting hammered and screwing your trainer in the Moonlight Motel." Her eyes filled with tears, the crocodile kind that had stopped working on me years ago. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that while I was sitting at home with Chinese food and a bottle of wine, waiting for my wife to come home, you were playing mattress gymnastics with Brad the Wonder Boy." Officer Martinez appeared in the doorway, a stocky man in his 30s with the kind of mustache that had gone out of style in the 80s. "Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you a few questions." We stepped into the hallway, and he flipped open his notepad. "Your wife was found unconscious in room 237 at the Moonlight Motel around 10:30 p.m. The desk clerk called it in when housekeeping reported sounds of a disturbance. When we arrived, she was alone, intoxicated, with signs of physical activity." "Where's her boyfriend?" "That's what we're trying to determine. The room was registered to a Brad Collins, you know him?" I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "He's my wife's personal trainer. 28 years old, drives a red Camaro, and apparently has a thing for married women with joint checking accounts." The officer scribbled notes. "Any idea where he might have gone?" "Probably running back to his apartment with his tail between his legs. Brad's the kind of guy who's all muscles and no spine when things get complicated." "We'll need you to sign some paperwork. Your wife's asking for you." I looked back through the doorway at Sarah, who was staring at the ceiling like she was trying to find answers in the water stains. 25 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a mortgage, and countless shared memories, all flushed down the drain for a few hours with a guy who probably couldn't spell commitment if you spotted him the first 7 letters. "Tell her I'll be right back," I said to the officer. "I need some air." The hospital parking lot was nearly empty, except for a few cars belonging to night shift workers and one red Camaro parked in the shadows near the emergency exit. Brad's car still warm, with the engine ticking as it cooled. I walked around it slowly, noting the custom rims, the racing stripes, the vanity plate that read, "Fit God 1." Inside the car, I could see Sarah's purse on the passenger seat, along with an empty bottle of champagne and what looked like a receipt from Victoria's Secret. The anniversary lingerie I'd never get to see. I pulled out my keys and walked to the driver's side, The paint was pristine, probably waxed weekly by someone who thought a car defined their worth as a human being. I dragged my house key along the door, leaving a thin silver line from the handle to the rear wheel well. Then I did the same to the passenger side. As I finished my artwork, I heard footsteps on the asphalt. Brad emerged from behind a dumpster looking like a deer caught in headlights. He was still wearing his gym clothes, his perfect hair mussed, his face pale in the parking lot lights. "Hey man," he said, holding up his hands. "Look, I can explain." I cut him off by grabbing his shirt and slamming him against his scratched car. He was bigger than me, younger, probably stronger, but he wasn't expecting a 48-year-old auto mechanic to have a grip like a vice and the kind of rage that comes from 25 years of trying to be a good husband. "You want to explain?" I hissed, my face inches from his. "Explain how you celebrate someone else's anniversary by screwing their wife in a Fleabag motel." "She said you guys were separated," he stammered. "She said the marriage was over." "Did she also say she'd pay for the motel room with our joint credit card? Because that's a real nice touch, having me finance your little romantic getaway." I let him go, and he stumbled backward, nearly falling over his own feet. "Look, David, I never meant for it to go this far. Sarah's been having problems, and she just needed someone to talk to." "Talk to?" I laughed. "Is that what they're calling it now? Because the police report's going to read a lot different than talking." Brad's face went white. "Police report?" "Oh yeah, see, when someone calls emergency from a motel room, and the paramedics have to check someone for injuries, that becomes a matter of public record. Sarah's going to be real popular at the country club when this gets out." I turned to walk away, then stopped. "One more thing, Brad. If I see you within 100 yards of my wife, my house, or my family, I'm going to introduce you to the business end of a tire iron. And unlike Sarah, I keep my promises." I left him standing there next to his vandalized car, probably trying to figure out how to explain the scratches to his insurance company. As I walked back toward the hospital, I could hear him cursing under his breath, but he didn't follow me. Sarah was still staring at the ceiling when I returned to her room. The tears had dried, leaving mascara tracks down her cheeks like skid marks on a highway. "The kids called," she said without looking at me. "I told them I was in a car accident." "Good thinking. Much better than telling them the truth." She finally turned to face me, and I could see something desperate in her eyes. "David, we can work through this. It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. 25 years, Sarah. 25 years I've been faithful to you. I've changed diapers, paid for dance lessons, worked overtime to pay for family vacations, and held your hand through your mother's funeral. And this is how you celebrate our anniversary? I know it was wrong, but we can get counseling. We can fix this." I stood up, suddenly feeling older than my 48 years. "Some things can't be fixed, Sarah. Some things are just broken." The drive home from the hospital felt like a funeral procession for my marriage. Sarah would be released in the morning, but I had no intention of being there to pick her up. She could call Brad or a taxi or crawl home on her hands and knees for all I cared. Our house sat in the middle of Maple Street like a monument to suburban normalcy. White picket fence, manicured lawn, flower boxes that Sarah insisted on planting every spring. 20 years of mortgage payments, and now it felt like a mausoleum. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my workshop behind the house, surrounded by the tools of my trade and the skeleton of a 1967 Mustang I'd been restoring for the past 2 years. Cars made sense. You could diagnose their problems, order the right parts, and fix what was broken. People were messier. My phone buzzed with a text from our oldest daughter, Jennifer. She was 23, fresh out of college, and working as a marketing assistant in Chicago. "Dad," Mom called. "Is she okay? What happened?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "She's fine. Car accident. She'll be home tomorrow." Another lie to add to the pile. But what was I supposed to tell her? That her mother was celebrating their parents' anniversary by having an affair with a guy barely older than she was? The bourbon burned going down, but it was nothing compared to the fire in my chest. 25 years of marriage, and Sarah had thrown it away for what? A few hours of feeling young again? Some validation from a guy who probably told all his clients they were special? My phone rang. Sarah's sister, Karen. David, I just heard about Sarah's accident. How is she? Karen lived in the next town over with her husband Mike and their 2 teenage kids. She was Sarah's younger sister by 3 years, but she'd always acted like she was the older, wiser one. Karen had opinions about everything: our house, our cars, my job, the way we raised our kids. She was the kind of person who gave advice nobody asked for and took credit for other people's successes. She's going to be fine, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Thank God. Mike and I were so worried when we heard. What hospital is she at? We'll drive over right now. That's not necessary. She's sleeping and visiting hours are over. Nonsense. Family doesn't worry about visiting hours. We'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before I could protest. I finished my bourbon and headed back to the hospital, knowing that Karen would turn Sarah's situation into a 3-act drama with herself as the star. I found Karen and Mike in Sarah's room, along with Karen's 2 kids, 16-year-old twins named Ashley and Brittany, who were glued to their phones and looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. David! Karen rushed over and hugged me like I was the one who'd been in the hospital. How are you holding up? This must be so traumatic for you. Mike nodded from the corner where he was trying to look invisible. He was a good guy, worked in IT, coached Little League, and had the patience of a saint for putting up with Karen's dramatics. I'm fine, I said. Sarah's the one who got hurt. But you're the husband. You're the one who has to be strong for everyone else. I know how much pressure you must be feeling. Sarah was awake now, looking embarrassed by the attention. The twins had claimed the visitor chairs and were texting furiously, probably complaining to their friends about having to spend their evening in a hospital room. What exactly happened? Karen asked, settling into the chair next to Sarah's bed like she was planning to stay all night. The details were so vague on the phone. Sarah glanced at me, panic in her eyes. I was driving home from the gym, and I guess I was tired. I don't remember much after that. Which gym? Karen pressed. I thought you worked out at that place downtown. Yes, that's where I was. But the accident was way out by the interstate, wasn't it? That's not on your way home from downtown. I could see Sarah scrambling for an explanation, so I jumped in. She stopped for gas. Sometimes she takes the long way home to unwind after a workout. Karen looked skeptical, but before she could ask more questions, a nurse appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry, but visiting hours ended an hour ago. Mrs. Thompson needs her rest. Of course, Karen said, standing up and smoothing her skirt. We'll be back first thing in the morning. Sarah, honey, do you need anything? I can bring you some of those magazines you like, or maybe some of Mom's homemade cookies. That's sweet, but I'll probably be going home tomorrow. Absolutely not. You need to take this seriously. Head injuries are nothing to mess around with. You should stay here for observation, maybe get a second opinion. Mike finally spoke up. Karen, the doctors know what they're doing. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to advocate for yourself in these situations. David, you need to make sure they're giving Sarah the best possible care. I nodded, mostly to get her to stop talking. The twins had already wandered out into the hallway, probably looking for a vending machine or a way to escape their mother's performance. After they left, Sarah and I sat in uncomfortable silence. The elephant in the room, or in this case the personal trainer in the motel room, loomed between us like a toxic cloud. Thank you, she said finally, for not telling Karen the truth. I didn't do it for you. I did it for Jennifer and Rebecca. They don't need to hear about this from their aunt. Rebecca was our younger daughter, 21, and finishing her junior year at State. She was the artistic one, studying graphic design and dating a guy named Tyler who played guitar in a band that performed at coffee shops. What are we going to tell the girls? We're going to tell them the truth, eventually, but they deserve to hear it from us, not from Karen's gossip network. Sarah started crying again, the kind of ugly crying that comes from genuine regret rather than self-pity. I'm so sorry, David. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Sorry for what exactly? Sorry you got caught? Sorry you embarrassed yourself? Sorry you had to go to the hospital? Or sorry you threw away 25 years of marriage for a few hours with a guy who left you unconscious in a motel room? All of it. I'm sorry for all of it. I stood up to leave. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. After that, we need to figure out what comes next. What do you mean? I mean our marriage is over, Sarah. You ended it tonight. Now we just have to decide how to bury it. The drive home was quieter this time, but my head was louder. 25 years of shared history doesn't just disappear because your wife decides to have a midlife crisis. There were good times mixed in with the mundane. Family vacations, Christmas mornings, the girls' graduations, quiet Sunday mornings reading the paper together. But there were also signs I'd chosen to ignore. The way Sarah had started criticizing everything about our life together. The house was too small. The neighborhood was too boring. I didn't make enough money. We never went anywhere exciting. The way she'd started dressing younger, buying clothes that looked like they belonged on someone half her age. The way she'd started picking fights over nothing, like she was trying to justify something to herself. I should have seen it coming. Maybe part of me did see it coming, but I chose to believe that 25 years of marriage meant something. That the vows we'd taken meant something. That I meant something. My phone buzzed with another text from Jennifer. Called the hospital. Mom's not listed as a patient. What's really going on? Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. I'd have to call her in the morning and tell her the truth, or at least a version of it she could handle. Jennifer had always been protective of her mother, but she was also practical enough to understand that marriages sometimes fall apart. Rebecca would be harder to tell. She was more emotional, more idealistic. She still believed in fairy tale endings and happily ever after. This was going to shatter some illusions for her. I finished the bottle of bourbon and went to bed in the guest room. Sarah's perfume still lingered on the pillows in our bedroom, mixed with the scent of whatever cheap cologne Brad wore. I couldn't stomach the thought of sleeping there. Tomorrow, I'd have to start figuring out how to untangle 25 years of shared life. Joint bank accounts, credit cards, insurance policies, retirement funds, the house, the cars, all the accumulated stuff of a long marriage. And somehow, I'd have to do it without completely destroying our daughters in the process. But tonight, I just wanted to forget that my wife had chosen to celebrate our silver anniversary by proving that 25 years of faithfulness and commitment meant less to her than a few hours of feeling desired by someone new. I picked Sarah up from the hospital the next morning, driving in silence while she stared out the passenger window, like she was seeing our neighborhood for the first time. When we pulled into our driveway, Karen's minivan was already there, along with Mike's sedan. I called her, Sarah said quietly. I needed someone to talk to. Of course you did. Karen met us at the front door, arms outstretched like Sarah was returning from war instead of a one-night stay in the hospital after a motel room incident. Oh, honey, you look terrible. Come on, let's get you inside and comfortable. I made coffee and I brought those herbal teas you like. Mike was sitting at our kitchen table, looking uncomfortable and checking his phone every few seconds. The twins were nowhere to be seen, probably still in bed since it was barely 9 in the morning. David, Karen said, bustling around our kitchen like she owned it. I've been thinking about Sarah's accident and something doesn't add up. What do you mean? I poured myself coffee from the pot she'd made, which was stronger than I liked it. Well, I drove by the accident scene this morning, and there's no sign of any crash. No skid marks, no broken glass, no damaged guardrails. Nothing. Sarah went pale. Maybe they cleaned it up already. In 12 hours? On a Sunday? I don't think so. Karen sat down across from Sarah, her expression serious. Honey, what really happened last night? The silence stretched out like a rubber band about to snap. Mike looked up from his phone, sensing the tension. Sarah glanced at me, pleading with her eyes, but I was done covering for her. Tell her, I said. Tell me what? Sarah started crying again. I wasn't in a car accident. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. What kind of mistake? The kind that involves a motel room and her personal trainer, I said, when Sarah couldn't find the words. Karen's mouth fell open. Mike's phone clattered onto the table. The only sound was the coffee maker gurgling and Sarah's quiet sobbing. You had an affair? Karen's voice was barely a whisper. It wasn't an affair. It was one night. One stupid, horrible night. On your anniversary. Karen's voice was getting louder. You cheated on David on your 25th wedding anniversary? I know how it sounds. It sounds like you've lost your mind. Karen stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Do you have any idea what you've done? David is a good man. He's been nothing but faithful to you for 25 years, and this is how you repay him? Karen, please. Don't Karen please me. I'm your sister, and I'm telling you that you've made the biggest mistake of your life. Mike cleared his throat. Maybe we should give them some privacy to work this out. No, Karen snapped. Someone needs to talk sense into her. Sarah, you have 2 beautiful daughters, a lovely home, a husband who adores you. Why would you throw all that away for some boy toy? It's not that simple, Sarah said. It's exactly that simple. You made a choice. You chose to betray your family for what? A few hours of excitement? Some validation from a guy who's young enough to be your son? I had to admit, Karen was saying everything I wanted to say but couldn't, without sounding like a bitter husband. There was something satisfying about watching Sarah get lectured by someone who'd spent years giving her unsolicited advice about everyone else's life. You don't understand, Sarah said. I've been feeling invisible for years. David comes home from work, eats dinner, watches TV, and goes to bed. We don't talk anymore. We don't do anything together. I felt like I was disappearing. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to your husband about it? Karen's voice dripped with disgust. That's your solution to feeling invisible? Making yourself the center of a scandal? I didn't plan for it to happen. Brad was just... He listened to me. He made me feel attractive again. Brad? Mike spoke up. The trainer at your gym? Isn't he about Jennifer's age? Sarah's face turned red. Age doesn't matter when someone actually pays attention to you. Age absolutely matters. Karen shot back. You're a grown woman with responsibilities. You don't get to act like a teenager just because you're having a midlife crisis. I was starting to feel sorry for Sarah, which surprised me. Karen was relentless when she got going, and she clearly saw this as an opportunity to prove she was the better sister, the one who'd never make such a catastrophic mistake. That's enough, I said. Sarah knows she screwed up. Yelling at her isn't going to fix anything. Karen turned her attention to me. What are you going to do? I'm going to divorce her. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah looked up at me with genuine surprise, like she'd expected me to forgive and forget after a few weeks of groveling. David, no, she said. We can work through this. People do it all the time. Some people do. I'm not some people. Karen nodded approvingly. Good for you. You deserve better than this. It's not about what I deserve. It's about what I can live with. And I can't live with wondering if you're going to do this again the next time you feel invisible. Mike stood up. We should go. This is between you two. Actually, I said, there's something else you should know. The whole town's going to know about this by tomorrow. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Police reports are public record. Hospital admissions are gossiped about. The Moonlight Motel keeps security footage. Your credit card records show you paying for the room. This isn't going to stay secret. Sarah's face went white. The girls? The girls are going to find out. Your friends are going to find out. Everyone at the country club, everyone at your book club, everyone at the grocery store. They're all going to know that you celebrated our 25th anniversary by screwing a guy half your age in a cheap motel. Karen looked almost pleased by this development. She'd always been competitive with Sarah, and now she had something to feel superior about for the rest of their lives. Maybe that's what you need, Karen said. Maybe you need to face the consequences of your actions instead of having David clean up your mess. I'm not cleaning up anything, I said. I'm done. Sarah can figure out how to handle the fallout on her own. Mike tugged on Karen's arm. Come on, let's go home. After they left, Sarah and I sat in our kitchen like strangers waiting for a bus. The house felt different now, tainted by the truth that had finally been spoken out loud. I need to call the girls, Sarah said. No, we'll call them together tonight. They deserve to hear this from both of us. What are you going to tell them? The truth. That their mother had an affair and their parents are getting divorced. They're adults. They can handle it. Jennifer's going to hate me. Maybe, but that's not my problem anymore. Sarah started crying again, but this time I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. 25 years of being the husband who fixed everything, who smoothed over the rough spots, who made excuses for her bad behavior. I was done being that guy. Where am I going to go? She asked. I don't know. Maybe Brad has a room at his place, or maybe Karen will let you stay with them until you figure it out. You're really going to throw me out of our house? It's not our house anymore, Sarah. It's my house. You gave up your claim to it when you decided to celebrate our anniversary in a motel room. The phone rang, interrupting our conversation. It was Jennifer. Dad, I've been trying to reach Mom all morning. Is everything okay? I looked at Sarah, who was shaking her head frantically. We need to talk, I said. Can you drive down this afternoon? Drive down? Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? Just come home, Jen. Bring Tyler if you want. We'll explain everything when you get here. After I hung up, Sarah looked at me with something approaching panic. I'm not ready for this. You should have thought about that before you decided to have an affair. Ready or not, the consequences are coming. Jennifer arrived at 4 p.m. with Tyler in tow, both of them looking worried and confused. Rebecca drove up from college an hour later, her old Honda Civic loaded with laundry bags and textbooks from her weekend study session. We gathered in the living room like we were about to hold a funeral service, which, in a way, we were. The death of our family as the girls had always known it. Okay, Jennifer said, settling onto the couch next to Tyler. What's the big emergency? And why does Mom look like she's been crying for a week? Rebecca curled up in the armchair she'd claimed as her own since middle school. Did someone die? Is Grandma okay? Sarah looked at me pleadingly, but I wasn't going to be the one to deliver this news. She'd made the choice that brought us to this moment. She could explain it to her daughters. Girls, Sarah began, her voice shaking. Your father and I need to tell you something important. Something that's going to change things for our family. Are you getting divorced? Rebecca asked bluntly. Because that's what it sounds like you're building up to. Yes, I said, when Sarah hesitated. We are. Jennifer's face went white. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, probably wishing he'd stayed in Chicago. Rebecca just nodded like she'd been expecting this news for years. Why? Jennifer asked. I mean, you guys have been married forever. You made it through Dad's job layoffs and Mom's cancer scare and all the normal stuff. What could be so bad that you're giving up now? Sarah took a shaky breath. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake that hurt your father very badly. What kind of mistake? The silence stretched out until Rebecca spoke up. Mom had an affair, didn't she? Sarah started crying again. Jennifer's mouth fell open. Tyler studied his hands like they held the secrets of the universe. With who? Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. My personal trainer, Brad Collins. The musclehead from your gym? Mom, he's my age. I know how it looks. How it looks. Jennifer stood up, pacing to the window. It looks like you lost your mind. It looks like you threw away your entire family for some guy who probably hits on all his clients. It wasn't like that, Sarah protested. He understood me. He listened to me. He listened to you? Rebecca's voice was getting louder. What about Dad? What about us? We've been listening to you our whole lives. Tyler cleared his throat. Maybe I should wait outside. No, I said. You're family now. You might as well hear the whole story. Jennifer turned from the window, her face flushed with anger. There's more? Your mother celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary by spending the night with Brad in a motel room. She ended up in the hospital because she got drunk and he left her there unconscious. Jesus Christ, Mom. Jennifer's voice was full of disgust. How could you be so stupid? Jennifer? No, don't Jennifer me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Not just to Dad, but to all of us? This is going to be all over town. Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to be talking about how Sarah Thompson had a midlife crisis and screwed her trainer. Rebecca was crying now too, but quietly, like she was mourning something she'd lost forever. I can't believe you did this to Dad. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Sarah said. I was lonely. I felt like I was disappearing. So you decided to make yourself the star of the town's biggest scandal? Jennifer was relentless. That's your solution to feeling invisible? It sounds like Aunt Karen got to you, Rebecca said bitterly. Aunt Karen didn't need to get to me. I have eyes. I can see what Mom did to our family. Tyler finally spoke up. Maybe everyone should take a breath. This is a lot to process. You think? Jennifer snapped. My mother just told me she threw away 25 years of marriage for a few hours with a guy who's probably sleeping with half the women at that gym. That's not fair, Sarah protested. Fair? Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? What's fair is Dad working 60-hour weeks to pay for our college. What's fair is Dad never missing one of our school plays or soccer games. What's fair is Dad being faithful to you for 25 years while you were off having your little adventure. I'd never heard Jennifer talk to her mother like this. She'd always been Sarah's defender, the one who took her side in family arguments. But the betrayal had hit her hard, maybe harder than it had hit me. Jennifer, please, Sarah begged. I know I made a mistake. I know I hurt everyone, but I'm still your mother. Are you? Because the mother I knew would never do something like this. The mother I knew cared about her family more than she cared about feeling young again. Rebecca stood up abruptly. I can't do this right now. I need some air. She headed for the door and Tyler followed her, probably grateful for an excuse to escape the family drama. That left me, Sarah, and Jennifer staring at each other across a living room that suddenly felt like a battlefield. Where are you going to live? Jennifer asked her mother. I don't know yet. Maybe I can stay with Aunt Karen for a while. Good luck with that. She's probably already planning how to use this as ammunition for the next 20 years. Jennifer was right about that. Karen would dine out on this story for decades, positioning herself as the good sister who'd never betrayed her family. What about the house? Jennifer asked me. I'm keeping it. Your mother forfeited her claim when she decided to have an affair. Good. This is your house, Dad. You're the one who's taken care of it all these years. Sarah looked stricken. Jennifer, I understand you're angry, but I'm still your mother. I love you and Rebecca more than anything. If you loved us more than anything, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have risked destroying our family for some guy you barely know. I've known Brad for 6 months. 6 months? Jennifer's voice cracked. You threw away 25 years of marriage for someone you've known for 6 months? The front door opened, and Rebecca came back inside with Tyler trailing behind her. Her eyes were red from crying, but she looked calmer. I talked to Tyler, she said, sitting back down. He helped me think through some things. What kind of things? Sarah asked hopefully. Like how I'm going to explain to my friends that my mother had an affair with her trainer. Like how I'm going to handle it when people at school start gossiping about our family. Like how I'm supposed to trust anything you say ever again. Becca, please. No, Mom. You don't get to please me. You made this choice. You decided that whatever you were feeling was more important than your marriage. your family, your reputation, everything. So now you get to live with the consequences. Jennifer nodded. Rebecca's right. You don't get to ask us to make this easier for you. You created this mess. You figure out how to clean it up. Sarah looked at me desperately. David, please, talk to them. They'll listen to you. No, I said. They're adults, and they're right. You made this choice without thinking about how it would affect anyone else. Now you get to deal with the fallout. So that's it? 25 years of marriage, and you're all just going to write me off? You wrote yourself off, Rebecca said quietly. The minute you decided to cheat on Dad, you wrote yourself off. Sarah stood up, swaying slightly like she was dizzy. I think I need to lie down. You can use the guest room, I said. Tonight. Tomorrow you need to find somewhere else to stay. After she left the room, the three of us sat in silence. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. I'm sorry you had to see this, I told him. It's okay, Mer Thompson. Family stuff is complicated. Not this complicated, Jennifer said bitterly. This is next-level dysfunction. What happens now? Rebecca asked. Now I file for divorce. I sell this house and find something smaller. You girls finish college and start your lives without having to worry about your parents' drama. I don't want you to sell the house, Jennifer said. This is our home. It's too big for one person. And honestly, I need a fresh start somewhere that doesn't remind me of the last 25 years. Rebecca nodded. I get that. But it's still sad. This house has so many good memories. It does. But it also has this memory now, and that's going to overshadow everything else. Tyler spoke up again. For what it's worth, Mr. Thompson, I think you're handling this with a lot more class than most people would. Thanks, Tyler. That means something. Jennifer looked toward the stairs where Sarah had disappeared. Do you think she really regrets it? Or is she just sorry she got caught? I don't know, and honestly, it doesn't matter. The damage is done, either way. I keep thinking about all the times she lectured us about making good choices and thinking about consequences, Rebecca said. All those talks about how our actions affect other people. What a hypocrite. She's still your mother, I said, though the words felt hollow. Yeah, well, maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to screw her trainer in a motel room. The bitterness in Rebecca's voice was something new. She'd always been the softer one, the one who saw the best in people. But Sarah's betrayal had hardened something in her that might never soften again. Are you going to be okay, Dad? Jennifer asked. Eventually. It's going to take some time, but I'll figure it out. We'll help, Rebecca said. Whatever you need. Right now, I just need you two to focus on finishing school and building your own lives. Don't let your mother's mistake derail your futures. What about her future? Jennifer asked. What's she going to do? That's not my problem anymore. She's a grown woman. She can figure it out. But even as I said it, I wondered if Sarah really could figure it out. She'd spent 25 years being part of a couple, part of a family. Now she was going to be a middle-aged divorcee with a reputation as the woman who cheated on her husband with a guy young enough to be her son. The thought should have given me some satisfaction, but mostly it just made me tired. 25 years of marriage, and this was how it ended. Not with a gradual growing apart, but with a spectacular act of betrayal that would define the rest of our lives. 3 weeks later, I was in my workshop when I heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Through the window, I could see Karen's minivan and another car I didn't recognize. Great. Just what I needed on a Saturday afternoon. I'd been avoiding Karen since the day after Sarah's hospital adventure, but apparently she'd decided it was time for another intervention. Sarah had been staying with them, sleeping on their couch and pretending this was all just a temporary setback instead of the complete destruction of her life. Karen knocked on the workshop door like she was serving a warrant. David, we need to talk. I opened the door to find Karen, Mike, and a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-40s, professional-looking, carrying a briefcase. This is Linda Morrison, Karen announced. She's a marriage counselor. We thought it might help if you and Sarah talked to someone neutral. I'm not interested in counseling, I said. I'm interested in getting divorced and moving on with my life. David, please, the counselor said in that soothing voice they probably teach in therapy school. I understand you're hurt and angry, but 25 years of marriage is worth fighting for. Is it? Because Sarah didn't seem to think so when she was celebrating our anniversary with her trainer. Mike shifted uncomfortably. Look, David, I know what Sarah did was wrong, but people make mistakes. Sometimes you can work through them. Some mistakes, sure. But this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Sarah chose to have an affair. She chose to lie to me for months. She chose to spend our anniversary in a motel room with another man. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. Karen crossed her arms. So you're just going to throw away 25 years because of one bad decision? I'm not throwing anything away. Sarah already did that. The counselor stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, I've been working with couples for 15 years. I've seen marriages survive infidelity. It takes work, but it's possible. Maybe for some people, not for me. Why not? I set down the wrench I'd been holding and looked at all three of them. Because every time I look at her, I see her in that motel room. Every time she touches me, I think about where her hands have been. Every time she says she loves me, I remember that she said the same thing to him. You can't counsel that away. You could try, Karen insisted. For the girls, for the family. The girls are adults. They'll adjust. And the family? Sarah destroyed that when she decided to have an affair. Linda, the counselor, tried a different approach. What would it take for you to consider working on the marriage? Nothing. There's nothing she could do or say that would make me want to stay married to her. That seems very final. It is final. I've already filed the divorce papers. Karen's face flushed red. You filed without even trying to work things out? What's to work out? She cheated. I'm done. End of story. But the house, the finances, the years you've built together? The house will be sold and the proceeds split. The finances will be divided according to state law. The years we built together are over. It's not complicated, Karen. Mike spoke up. What about Sarah? Where's she supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. She's a grown woman with a law degree and a job. She can figure out her own living situation. She's family, Karen protested. No, she was family. Now she's my soon-to-be ex-wife who made the choice to destroy our marriage. There's a difference. The counselor made one more attempt. Mr. Thompson, I can see you're very hurt, but making permanent decisions while you're in emotional pain isn't always wise. I'm not in emotional pain. I'm angry, but I'm not making decisions based on emotion. I'm making them based on reality. The reality is that I can never trust Sarah again. The reality is that our marriage is over. The reality is that I'd rather be alone than spend the rest of my life wondering if she's going to cheat again. She swears it was a one-time mistake, Karen said. And you believe her? Because I don't. I think this was just the first time she got caught. That hit home. Karen's face went pale and Mike looked away. Even the counselor seemed to realize she was fighting a losing battle. Have you talked to the girls about this? Karen asked. They support my decision. They're as disgusted with their mother's behavior as I am. That's not healthy for them. They need to maintain a relationship with their mother. They can have whatever relationship they want with her, but they don't get to guilt me into staying married to someone who betrayed our entire family. A car pulled into the driveway behind the minivan. Sarah got out looking nervous and hopeful. She'd lost weight over the past 3 weeks, and her clothes hung on her like she was a child playing dress-up. David, she said, approaching the workshop. Thank you for agreeing to talk. I didn't agree to anything. Your sister ambushed me. Please, just 5 minutes. Let me explain. Explain what? How you decided to celebrate our anniversary by screwing a guy half your age? How you lied to me for months? How you used our joint credit card to pay for the motel room? What exactly do you want to explain? I want to explain why it happened. I want you to understand that it wasn't about you. It was about me feeling lost and invisible and... Stop. I held up my hand. I don't care why it happened. I don't care about your feelings or your midlife crisis or your need for validation. I care that it happened, and I care that you chose to do it instead of talking to me about whatever problems you were having. I tried to talk to you. You never listened. Eyes, you never tried to talk to me about anything important. You just started having an affair and told yourself it was my fault. The counselor stepped between us. This is exactly the kind of communication breakdown that counseling can help with. There's no communication breakdown, I said. There's a trust breakdown. There's a marriage breakdown. There's a family breakdown. And it's all because Sarah decided to have an affair instead of acting like an adult. Sarah started crying again, but I was immune to her tears now. I'd seen too many of them over the past 3 weeks, and they'd lost their power to make me feel guilty or sympathetic. I know I hurt you, she said. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you, David. I've always loved you. No, you don't. You love the idea of being married. You love the security and the respectability and the image of having a family, but you don't love me because people who love each other don't do what you did. That's not true. It is true. If you loved me, you would have talked to me about feeling invisible instead of having an affair. If you loved me, you would have worked on our marriage instead of working on your trainer. If you loved me, you wouldn't have celebrated our anniversary by screwing someone else. Karen tried to intervene. David, you're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Mike stepped forward. Look, maybe we should all take a break and... No, I said. We're not taking a break. We're done here. Sarah, you have until next weekend to get your stuff out of the house. After that, anything you leave behind goes to Goodwill. Where am I supposed to put it all? She asked. I don't know. Rent a storage unit, move in with Brad. Ask Karen if you can use her garage. Figure it out. Brad won't return my calls, she said quietly. I almost laughed. What a surprise. The guy who left you unconscious in a motel room doesn't want to deal with the consequences of your affair. Who could have seen that coming? You don't have to be so mean about it. Mean? You want to see mean? Mean would be posting the security footage from the motel online. Mean would be telling everyone at your book club exactly what happened that night. Mean would be making sure Brad's other clients know what kind of guy he really is. I'm not being mean, Sarah. I'm being merciful. The counselor made one last attempt. Mr. Thompson, I really think you should consider... Lady, I don't know you, and I don't care what you think. My marriage is over, my wife destroyed it, and I'm not interested in putting it back together. Now, all of you need to get off my property before I call the police. They left without another word, Sarah crying, Karen fuming, Mike looking relieved to escape the drama. The counselor handed me her business card as she walked past, but I dropped it in the trash can without looking at it. I went back to working on the Mustang, but my hands were shaking with anger. 25 years of marriage, and it had come down to a confrontation in my workshop with a sister-in-law who'd never liked me and a marriage counselor who thought she could fix everything with a few therapy sessions. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Heard about the ambush, you okay? I texted back, fine. Your mother has until next weekend to get her stuff. Good, she made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. Rebecca texted a few minutes later. Dad, I'm sorry Mom put you through that. You don't deserve this. Thanks, kiddo. Love you. Love you too. Stay strong. I finished working on the Mustang as the sun set behind the trees. Tomorrow, I'd start packing up 25 years of shared belongings, separating my life from Sarah's piece by piece. It would be painful, but it was necessary. The marriage was over. The family as we'd known it was over, but I was still here, still standing, still moving forward. Sarah had tried to destroy everything we'd built together, but she hadn't destroyed me. And in the end, that was going to have to be enough. 1 week later, Sarah showed up with a rental truck and 2 guys from a moving company. I watched from the workshop as they loaded boxes and furniture, dismantling the physical evidence of our marriage piece by piece. She knocked on the workshop door when they were finished. "I'm done," she said. "I got everything." "Good." "David, Just don't. It's over, Sarah. We're done." She stood there for a moment longer, maybe hoping I'd change my mind or offer some final gesture of forgiveness. But I had nothing left to give her. After she left, I walked through the house, noting the empty spaces where her furniture had been, the bare walls where her pictures had hung. It looked like a crime scene, evidence of a life that had been lived here and was now gone forever. But it also looked like possibility, like a fresh start, like freedom. I poured myself a bourbon and sat on the back porch watching the sun set over the neighborhood where I'd lived for 20 years. Tomorrow, I'd put the house on the market. Next month, I'd be living somewhere new, starting over at 48 years old. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I had. And for the first time in weeks, that felt like enough. 6 months later, I ran into Brad at the grocery store. He looked smaller somehow, less confident than he had that night in the hospital parking lot. When he saw me, he tried to duck down another aisle, but I followed him. "Brad," I called out. "How's life treating you?" He turned around reluctantly, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Oh, hey, David. How are you doing?" "Great, actually. Divorced, moved into a nice condo downtown, dating a woman who doesn't think marriage is a suggestion. Life's good." He nodded awkwardly, clearly wanting to escape this conversation. "How's Sarah?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from Jennifer. I haven't talked to her in months." "Really? That's too bad. I thought you two had something special. At least special enough to destroy a 25-year marriage over." "Look, David, I'm sorry about what happened. I never meant for things to go that far." "Sure you did. You meant for every bit of it to happen. You just didn't mean to deal with the consequences." He started to walk away, but I wasn't finished. "You know what the funny thing is, Brad? You did me a favor. You showed me who Sarah really was. You saved me from wasting any more years on a woman who was capable of throwing away everything we'd built together for a few hours with a guy who didn't even care enough to stick around when things got complicated." "I really am sorry," he said quietly. "No, you're not. You're embarrassed. There's a difference." I left him standing there in the cereal aisle and went home to my new life, the one Sarah had inadvertently given me by destroying the old one. It was smaller, simpler, but it was honest. And after 25 years of living with someone who was capable of that level of betrayal, honesty felt like the greatest luxury of all.